to Covering the Fields with your host, Joe Ellison.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to Covering the Field, the weekly program that analyzes all sports, handicaps them, and makes predictions. I'm your host, Joe Ellison, and today we're going to talk about college basketball, the NFL, hockey, the NBA, racing, baseball, and our You Got Host segment. We'd like to remind you listeners to email us at coveringthefield@gmail.com. Please give us your feedback, tell us your You Got Host stories, and visit our coveringthefield.com website daily to check out our many articles and our picks of the day and week. Find us on Twitter at Covering Field. Now, tipping things off this week, I'd like to introduce our men's college basketball expert, Big Richard Martin. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Joe. How are you doing?
Doing great. Also, Big Rich, we started March Madness just 2 weeks ago, and we're already down to the Final Four. What happened last week in the NCAA college basketball tournament?
Well, the Sweet 16, Joe, was March Madness. Goes down to the Elite Eight, and it was March Sadness. I mean, I couldn't believe our teams are doing great. We had Houston as a great pick. We had Arkansas as a great pick. We had Kansas. We had 3 out of 4 teams just cruising. We had the underdogs. And what happened? The Blue Buds come out. Duke takes care of Texas Tech, and then take care of our little Arkansas Razorbacks. Looks like they were playing a JV team. And then St. Peter's. What about them, Joe, huh? That was the Cinderella story. They knock off Purdue. How did that happen? I don't know. They can't shoot the 3 points in Purdue land, that's for sure. That's going to affect that Chris Ivy's draft for sure, because he had a terrible game. And St. Peter's goes to the Elite Eight, gets knocked off by North Carolina. Houston gets into a yawner type of game against Villanova. They go 1 for 18. How do you shoot 1 for 18, Joe, in an NCAA basketball game? I mean, Helen Keller with the gym lights off and having both doors open, she can at least make 3 shots.
Yeah, that was disappointing. Obviously, Duke was super hot shooting, the exact opposite. Speaking of cold shooting, in the Elite Eight, Miami, Florida was beating Kansas by 6 at halftime, then got outscored 47-15 in the second half to lose by 26. That 15 points was the lowest any team scored in any half in the entire tournament.
Yeah, it looked like an 8th grade basketball team out there trying to shoot a basket in there. I mean, it was just like a lid on it. Miami looked hot in the first half. They knocked off Iowa State in the Sweet 16, but Kansas, I'm telling you, they're peaking at the right time, and that's what we look at. Do we get to these times when we make our picks towards the future? We have to look at who is hot at the right time, and how does Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, and Villanova make it? I mean, there is no Cinderella story except for maybe the number 8 seed North Carolina. I
Right.
mean, can't remember last time there was an 8 seed. I remember 7 when UConn got in at 7 seed, but an 8 seed is definitely usually not in the Final Four.
You'd have to go back. Villanova, Raleigh Massimino won the entire tournament as an 8 seed when they beat Georgetown. That was 1985, I believe.
Joe, are you foreshadowing your next pick? I mean, are you saying that this is coming into effect?
No,
Villanova
I'm not.
recreated here. I mean, what a great story they are.
Yes, it is. It's a shame we couldn't put the 15 seed St. Peter's in there. They did peter out in the Elite Eight. They did beat Purdue, who was number 1 in the nation at one point this year. So, the Peacocks, they had an amazing run.
Oh, great season. 15
Yeah.
seed goes all the way to the Elite Eight. I mean, that's just what March Madness is supposed to be. And then I go over here and I start dogging my man Marc the Shark about how boring pro basketball is and how great NCAA basketball. And I caught myself when Kansas was just rolling in the Elite Eight game over Miami. I caught myself watching the NBA. So, I mean, maybe I have to give a little bit of something to Marc the Shark. I was tuning into it. Was so boring. I had to tune into the other game. Oh, It was St. Peter's, North Carolina, St. Peter's.
Yeah, and that was awful to watch.
It was awful. And then, what about the injury to Villanova's point guard, Justin Moore? I mean,
yes. Well, we're going to get into some predictions. You did mention that all 4 teams, I mean, it's possible you could have had them in your Final Four. They are blue bloods. In fact, all 4 of them wear blue. And since 2002, only 2 teams, Baylor and Louisville, were teams that won the championship and did not wear blue. So when you're filling out your bracket next year, you might want to go with the blue teams.
Well, you know that commercial that Snoop Dogg has with Christian Leitner and Sue Bird about the blue bloods, blue teams, the perfect shade of blue. Well, this year we will have a perfect shade of blue, even when Snoop Dogg's flashing his blue colors.
Yes, guaranteed blue. So, what are your predictions for the Final Four at the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana? The first game is Kansas -4.5. The total is 133, and they are playing Villanova.
Well, let's just look at the two contrast. Let's look what they did throughout the first four games of the NCAA tournament. Kansas has scored 304 points, so they average 76 points per game, and they've given up 239 points, so they're giving up 59.7, so basically 60 points a game. On the flip side, let's look at Villanova. They're averaging 66 points a game, but they are only giving up a whopping 55 points a game, thanks to Houston's woe shooting. That brought the number down, but I mean, they've won they've given up 44, 55, 61, and 60. So Villanova's playing great defense. That's what they are. They're 19th in the nation on defense, and Kansas is 23rd third in the nation on points scored. So it's a classic battle of offense versus defense.
Right. Villanova, amazing free throw shooting team, even though they don't score a whole lot. Certainly coaching, you got Jay Wright, who's won 2 championships in the last 6 seasons. That's very helpful. This injury, though, junior guard Justin Moore tore his right Achilles tendon.
Exactly. With 30 seconds left in the game was in the bag. What was he even doing on the court, Joe? I mean, now he blows his Achilles tendons out. But one thing you said, you hit a point. Villanova shoots as a team 83% free throw shooting. That's a great point you put out there. Caleb Daniels is the backup point guard. He's going to be just fine. Colin Gillespie averages 13 points a game. Caleb Daniels averages 10 points a game. Like you said, they play great defense. In the tournament, they're 10 for 23, and they're 37% 3-point shooting. That's what Daniel shoots throughout the year. So they're not even going to be hurting at that point. I think they still play the good defense. Like you said, with the coaching, you have Villanova's Jay Wright. He's won 2 national titles. His total record is 520 wins with 196 losses. And you play defense or you don't go to Villanova. So I think the defense comes in there. So you said the over-under is 136. I love the first half under in that. And then I'm going to take the points. There's 4.5. I'm going to take Villanova in the points. I think it's a close game. I like Villanova in the points.
You're taking Villanova and under.
And I like the under first half, Joe. Under first half.
Under first half. Okay.
Yes.
So, yes.
And then I like the under, like I said, like I said, I mean, they're giving up basically 60 points a game, and Villanova's giving up 55 points a game throughout the tournament. So I think both teams play defense well. I don't know if Villanova has some kind of magical thing going on, because whoever they play, they can't shoot the 3-point shot for anything. So I think Kansas might have a little bit of struggle in the first half. I love the under. Take Villanova in the 4.5, and we'll see what happens.
I can't get past this injury to the junior guard Justin Moore. He leads the team in minutes played. He's an excellent rebounder. He plays 4 different positions at times. Jay Wright quoted as saying, he's probably our most valuable player. He's one of the most complete players in the country. You look at his stats, second leading scorer on the team, 14.8 points a game. He's second on the team in assists. And you're mentioning the defense of Villanova. He often guarded the opposing team's best scorer when they were playing man-on-man defense. When you look at Kansas, you got some coaching there too. Bill Self has won the national championship, the $10 million man coach. When you play Kansas, you got to put on your track shoes. They like to run. They run a lot. They're going to have one less player, Villanova, to keep up with Kansas. My picks went 7-1 last week. I need to mention I'm riding a bit of a hot streak, although the Elite Eight I didn't do as well. Of course, that wasn't part of the show. I just can't pick a team who just lost its most valuable players, the coach said. If I pick a team like that and they don't cover the point spread, I figure that's on me. I'm going to take Kansas minus the 4.5 And I'm going to agree with you on the under. I'm going to go under on the whole game, though. The under 133.
Yeah, Bill Self has won one national title. His record is 554 and 124 losses for his career. He has a winning season just about wherever he went. He took over Oral Roberts in 1993, and then he went over to Tulsa and then to Illinois. And now he's been with Kansas for 20 some years. He has 25 straight 20-win seasons. He's a great coach. I can't argue with that, Joe.
Yes, it's a pretty equal when it comes to the coaching. I just got to look at the actual players on the court that are going to be there.
Yeah, that one you definitely have an even on the coaching, but now we're going to have to look at Duke, North Carolina, and there's not an even coaching on that one.
Yes, how about that game? The game most people are looking forward to on Saturday. Duke is -4. The total is 151 versus North Carolina in a battle of ACC rivals. That's like an understatement. Duke coach Mike Krzyzewski's last season going into this game. What do you think?
Well, do you think that we have Duke and North Carolina in their first meeting ever in the NCAA tournament? How could this be any better? The basketball gods have aligned this for us on his last season. Coach K, the winningest coach in college basketball, 1,129 wins, 308 losses, 5 national titles, 3 gold medals in the Olympics. You can't say enough about Coach K. His characteristics good. None of his players ever end up in the funny papers. No recruiting violations. It's just a class act. And now we get a third time around. North Carolina knocks off Coach K in his final game in Camden. Are you kidding me? And now we get this in the Final Four. Can't beat it. But who's their coach, Joe? First-year coach Herbert Davis.
Yeah, so Herbert Davis. Right. You got Coach K with 13 Final Fours. Hubert Davis's first year as a head coach, period.
Right. But Joe, there's only 2 players in college basketball history that's played in the Final Four and coached in the Final Four. One being our Herbert Davis. Who's the other one, Joe?
Played and coached in the Final Four? Oh, boy. Bobby Knight. I don't know.
Oh, Bobby Knight, Joe. It's Dick Hart from 1940 with Kansas. He coached. He was in 1940. He played for the national and the Final Four. Then he coached in 1957. So that's just quite an accomplishment, actually playing in the Final Four and being in the Final Four. Yeah. Let's give him credit, though. He was assistant coach under Roy Williams, one of the best coaches besides Coach K, and he was under his tutelage, and you could just see how much he cares about his kids, crying after the game. Yes. Just a great coach, a great story.
Yes. Well, that was a good trivia question. Dick Hart, and careful how you say that, the guy I never even heard of before. So I was never going to get that one. I'll give Hubert Davis credit. North Carolina wasn't even in the top 25 when the tournament started. They were as high as 125-1 in the middle of February.
So, I think we mentioned that on the show. I'm like, why not put $10? What did I do? I put it on Iowa at 100-1. What was I thinking? Why don't you take North Carolina?
I had Arkansas at 50. So
I had them at 75, Joe. And what did they do? They broke our hearts in the Elite Eight.
They ran into a very hot shooting Duke team.
That's right. Well, let's look at Duke. They're averaging 319 points. They've scored 319 points. They're averaging 79.5 per game, and they're giving up just a tad under 70 at 69.7. Let's look at North Carolina. They're averaging 82.5 points per game, but only giving up 66 points per game. So that tells you that might narrow that 4-point spread for Duke. But, Joe, I can't go against Coach K in his final game. He gets a round 3. This is Ali Frazier. Can't be any better than this. I think round 3, we're taking Duke.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that. It's funny, the Tar Heels, when they played Baylor in the second round, they were leading by 25 in the second half. When Brady Manick got ejected for a flagrant foul, they blew all of that lead, managed to win in overtime. Otherwise, they wouldn't even be here. They're kind of lucky to actually be here.
And I told you that, Joe. You have to be lucky. One game, you're going to have to get lucky to get by them. And I think that Duke hasn't really had that.
Duke hasn't been lucky at all. They pretty much earned all their victories so far.
Right, exactly. So I think North Carolina might have to have a little bit of that Coach K luck. North Carolina, like you said, they put the press on them, and that's where they couldn't handle the press. And that game went to overtime with Baylor. That was a great game.
Yes, it was. And obviously, you mentioned in the regular season, both teams won on the opponent's home court, so no advantage there. And in fact, Duke was leading by 2 at halftime in the second game and lost by 13. So that was quite an effort by the Tar Heels. But when it comes down to it, it's so even. I've got to go with the coaching advantage. So I'm also taking Duke minus the 4. Any thoughts on the total?
Well, like you said, they're both averaging about 80 points per game and giving up pretty close to 67 to 78 points a game. So I think the game goes over. I think it's a run and shoot. I like the over in that, Joe.
Yes. As far as the total, I'm simply going to look at the 2 final scores of the games played this year, 87-67 and 94-81. That's 154 and 175, both over the 151 total. I'm taking the over 151, so we are in agreement for a change. Duke minus 4 and over 151.
Sounds good, Joe. It's going to be a great Final Four. Like you said, that Duke North Carolina game, that might have better ratings than the championship game on Monday.
It could very well. So, who do you like in the championship game?
I'm not going anywhere.
Assuming we're correct.
Assuming we're correct, of course, and I don't think how we could go against Coach K. Let's let the Blue Devils finish the fairy book story for Coach K. He deserves it. Let's go Blue Devils.
Yeah. As I've mentioned in past shows, 6 of the last 7 champions did not win their conference tournament. So that's going to be the Duke North Carolina side, not the Kansas Villanova side. And Coach K rides off into the sunset with the 6th national championship. Duke wins it all.
One other point I want to put out on the transfer portal, Joe, that Murray State, Justin Hill transferred to LSU with his coach, Matt McMahon. So look for LSU. That's their name. That's their number 1 scorer. He's averaging about 8 points. He's averaging 14 points a game and like 8 rebounds. So they're taking one of their better players with them from Murray State over to LSU.
All right. Something to look forward to for next year. So, Big Richard, you are also our NFL commentator. What news is there from the National Football League?
Well, just like we predicted, Joe, they're going to have the Josh Allen rule. In the playoffs, each team will have possession of the football. Like you said, out of 12 games, 10 have won. The flip has won the game.
Yes.
So I think that it's such an unfair advantage. Let's give the ball. But it kind of just puts it all into perspective, because now you're probably just like in college football, you're better off playing defense first. So if you win the coin toss, you play defense first, because you know you're going to get the ball back and you know what you have to do.
Absolutely. That is what you want to do. It's funny. It's the Josh Allen rule. It didn't seem to bother anybody when Tom Brady took advantage of that rule when he beat Atlanta in the Super Bowl and the Chiefs in the conference championship game by winning the coin toss and driving down the field and scoring a touchdown. Just saying. But anyway.
Right.
So yes, no, that's a great rule. It's overdue. It's interesting that it's only going to be for the playoffs, though. Regular season,
right,
the rules are going to stay the same.
Well, I think what they want to get away from is just prolonging the games, more chance for injuries. They're already taxing them with another football game, with 17-game season now. So I think that over time you can get hurt and injured. I think that's what that no one wants to see. So I think that that's the reason why they're not going to do it during the regular season. But when you're into the playoffs, you have to give each quarterback a chance to win it. At least have a chance. You can go for 2s if you don't want to kick the ball back off to the other team.
Yeah, well, even if you score 2, I think the other team should get a chance to score a touchdown, score 2. So I believe that's the way the case is in this rule, and it's an excellent rule. Speaking of rules, how about the Rooney rule? We had a little tweak to that this week.
Yeah, the Rooney rule is actually not in effect. They've replaced it with, now that you have to have a minority or a female coach on your offensive coaching staff. They don't have to actually be an offensive coordinator, but they have to be in a strong position where they can learn the system, as so many offensive coaches get chances at head coaching jobs. So I think the NFL is doing everything they can to make this more of an even playing field for minorities and also for the female coaches.
Yeah, it's interesting what these titles are going to be for some of these coaches, if they're actually going to be coaching. or if they're going to be like the offensive quality control coach or something ridiculous like that. Hopefully they're actually real coaches.
Well, I know there's only time's going to tell, but actually, the Rooney Rule is great getting people into the interviewing process. But if it's not worth anything if you're not getting them to head coaching jobs.
Right. And finally, what is the status of our buddies Baker Mayfield and Jimmy Garoppolo this week?
Well, Jimmy Garoppolo just came off of surgery. John Lynch said he's not interested in trading him right now. He's saying that he's been to the Super Bowl and lost, and also been to 2 NFC Championship games, and there's no reason to make a change except for you traded the whole first round picks to get your franchise quarterback.
And, precisely 3 first round picks. For Trey Lance.
Trey Lance, exactly. And so as we saw when he went in, he wasn't as efficient as Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, I think I'd rather have Jimmy Garoppolo, running my team at this point in their career. We don't know, but obviously, Shanahan's a great coach and he's a great offensive mind. And that's why I also like our guy out there in Miami with Tua. I think he's going to make him an offensive phenomenon, having Tyreek Hill with him, and having our boy Waddle out there. I think Miami's offense is going to be great. I think that it's going to be fun to watch, and they already had a solid defense. So kudos to them. I think they're going to be exciting.
They appear to be improved without a doubt.
And if you'd like to make a little wager, they're still at 60 to 1 odds right now. A $10 bet can get you $600 if the Dolphins, have their new steroided offense and offensive player. They might be, the baddest fish in the ocean.
It could be. And our buddy Baker Mayfield in Cleveland.
Well, when I came over by the freeway, I saw him over there in the cardboard box underneath the 395 out here in Reno. He's looking for a job. Still, poor guy, there's no trade value for him because they know Cleveland's stuck with him. So Pittsburgh's just sitting there waiting for him to cut him. If they cut him, can you imagine if Baker Mayfield goes to Pittsburgh? I mean,
well, that would give Pittsburgh like 4 different quarterbacks to choose from. The more the merrier.
Well, he would obviously be the number 1 if he would be out there. You want Baker Mayfield. I mean, he just gave Cleveland their first playoff win and almost went past Kansas City 2 years ago. So, I mean, he was banged up last year. He played hurt. He's a hard-nosed player. I think he's a perfect fit for Pittsburgh. I just don't think Cleveland wants to give it to him.
Right. I agree with that. Well, thank you, Big Rich, for being on the show.
And then next week, we will be going over the USFL. We'll have some predictions on that and maybe show some players. I think there's a little bit of value in the USFL. We can make our betting wagers and maybe make a little bit of money on USFL as long as they don't try to follow up like they did before, trying to get all the star players, make it a good recruiting league for the NFL, make it solid, good football. And obviously they have great coaches in there. So let's just see what happens. We'll have a USFL preview next week.
That sounds great. I'm looking forward to watching the USFL and handicapping it and hopefully making some money off of it.
All right, Joe, you have a good week. Let's go Duke.
Okay, thanks again. Next up is our NBA analyst, Marc the Shark Sabella. How are you feeling today, Marc?
I'm doing great, Joe. How are you?
I'm doing great also. There are 2 weeks to go in the National Basketball Association regular season. What have you got on tap for us this week, Marc?
Joe, I know I promised that I wasn't going to turn this into a take or fake, but we're going to turn all of my talk with you into the classic take or fake tonight. So the number 1 story last night was Utah's Donovan Mitchell calls a timeout when they don't have any more timeouts, which sealed their loss to the Clippers. So this is not the take or fake part, but the question is, what does that remind you of, Joe?
There's only one famous timeout, but it was in college. That was Chris Webber, Michigan.
Yes, you are correct, sir. And that's the reason why, of course, with the Final Four coming up, I believe it actually happened in the championship game that year. But it just was kind of funny that it was the timing of it last night, and it did cost them the win.
Take or fake.
take or fake number one, Joe. The Utah Jazz actually have enough seasoned personnel to make it to the Western Conference Finals.
Well, I would say so, absolutely. I'm not going to pick them, though. I'm going to stick with Phoenix, Memphis, and Golden State if they can ever get everybody on the court together. I would have them in the semifinals, though.
And do you think that they could actually win a semifinal game and get to the finals?
No, I'm not going to pick them to go to the finals. They started off the season very hot, and they've kind of been not nearly as hot as the season has gone on. So I'm not impressed with them at this exact moment. No.
I'm going to go ahead and say fake also, Joe.
Yes. I forgot to say fake, of course.
That's
a
okay.
fake.
That's okay. Don't ruin our great segment here, Joe. It's a great game we play. But we're going to look at the other side of the coin, a team that has been struggling all season. The Lakers, take or fake number two, Joe. The Lakers actually fell out of play-in number 10 position last night with a pretty devastating loss to Dallas. Anthony Davis and LeBron were questionable, but there's no real timetable with 2 weeks left for them to come back. I'm also looking at a pretty tough end of the season, regular season for them. What is your take or fake? The Lakers will actually make the playoffs this year.
I'm a Laker fan, and I've been trying to support them all the way through this whole ordeal, this horrible season. I do believe it was San Antonio that just passed them.
New Orleans.
New Orleans? Oh, okay. I thought New Orleans was already past them. Well, San Antonio is right behind them also, if that's the case. I'm done with the Lakers at this point. I've given up. They're not going to make it. It's better off that they don't make it, save themselves the embarrassment of losing in the playoffs, which they will, get a better chance at a really high draft pick in the lottery. I'm going to say fake.
Yeah, I'm going to say fake too, Joe, and it's for all the reasons that you cited. I just don't think they have enough gas in the tank. I don't think they have enough horses in the stall, whatever acronym or saying you want to use here. But LeBron is actually having a pretty decent season right now.
Oh, an amazing season.
But they are just not playing well with him carrying the load and having an MVP type of season. So in terms of a lottery pick, I think they traded away all their picks. So I'm not sure if next year is where they start getting them back or not, but I believe they traded them all away. So that doesn't even help them.
Yeah, maybe that Westbrook trade, I should say. That could have been the first rounder right there. Yeah, you might be right about that. Hadn't looked that far ahead.
Yeah.
It's
so
just
the Westbrook
the story gets worse and worse.
Yes, the Westbrook trade continues, Joe, to haunt us.
Yes. Number zero.
Yeah. So, Joe, take or fake number 3. The Celtics' Robert Williams went down last night with a pretty bad knee injury. He is slated to be out several weeks, which, as we know, there's only 2 weeks left in the season, the regular season right now. And so, this is going to cut into a majority of their playoff run. What's surprising is the Celtics last night, if you check the standings, they were all alone at the top of the Atlantic Division. And they have been quietly just been, other than to everyone other than Ronnie McKinnon, that's his team. But they have been quietly just ascending the rankings. In fact, are number 1 in the East right now. The take or fake, Joe, number 3, is that the Robert Williams injury is far more serious to prevent them from finishing in first and, really rising to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, that's a key injury. I guess, I hadn't really been following the Celtics a whole lot, but this Robert Williams from Texas A&M happens to be one of their three best players. So I'm going to say that's a fake. I guess that they will not be number one, actually. I think they can slide as far down as number 4 is what I can see. So that's what I'm going to predict, that they end up being the number 4 seed. The other teams get hot. Celtics feel the pain of that injury and move down.
Joe, I gotta agree with you again. I don't know if we can ever do a take or fake where we differ in opinions. I don't know if it's even happened yet, but I have to agree with you again. That's a fake. I think this Robert Williams injury is far more significant for them. They're gonna have to rely on the other 2 of the big 3, Jason Tatum and Brown now for a lot more, and they really missed that center presence of just dominating in the paint and blocking shots and grabbing rebounds. So unfortunately for Rock and Ronnie and for all Celtics fans, I foresee them falling a little bit. I still think they'll be in the top 4 of the playoff positioning, and we'll see. Maybe if they can get them back if they can make it to the finals, that might propel them. Who knows?
Well, I heard he was going to be out for the first week of the first round of playoffs, and maybe come back for the second round. And that would be good enough if he could play at a high level. I think they would win their first round, and then second round be at full strength.
Yeah, that bodes well for them, Joe, on that one. So, Joe, take or fake, number 4. Of course, we have to talk about the big talking point out of Brooklyn each and every week, and that's our favorite subject matter, Kyrie Irving. And so Kyrie Irving has now been cleared to play home games, as per Mayor Adams lifting the ban against New York players and performers.
Thank the Yankees for that.
Yeah, yes, and you even called that last week also. So you have a little bit of a fortune teller thing going there, right there. But he made it official, and this is going to be, but Kyrie Irving gets to play in his first game. They play against Charlotte in their last game, in his first game at home. He scores 16, but they lose. So you get a special bonus twofer, I guess we'll call it a 1-and-1 because we're talking basketball. But we're going to get a special bonus take or fake, Joe. Number 1, Kyrie Irving won his battle and all his dramatics won out over Mayor Adams, and Mayor Adams is the one that looks bad in this situation. But number 2, the bonus question is, Kyrie Irving is really not going to make any difference. It's not that. It's that Simmons is still not playing. It really doesn't matter. All this drama and everything was for naught. And it's really not going to help Brooklyn propel them to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Well, I think I'm going to go fake on both, if I understood you correctly. I think Mayor Adams did win on this deal. It took the Yankees to have him change this concept. It wasn't Kyrie Irving that changed this ban on unvaccinated players. Does it matter? Yeah, I think it definitely does matter. He's a key player to the team. I don't see them getting out of the first round of playoffs without him playing in every game. So I'm going to go fake on both.
Well, we can hope, Joe, that they play Toronto in the first round, and then he won't be playing his road games again, right?
Yes, he wouldn't be playing in Canada. That's true.
You're right, but no, I'm going to differ with this one. I'm going to say Kyrie Irving, at least with publicity, won this battle. So I'm going to say that's a take, and then I'm going to say. I'm going to also go against you on the other one. I think it's also a take. Who knows what that one game situation was. I think it is a big deal that he is going to be playing at home. It's interesting, that he's only played relatively half his games so far, if even that. He's got to be pretty well rested for the for the playoff season coming up. But I will say, I just don't know when or where Simmons is, and I don't know if even if he does come back for the playoffs, if he's actually going to be a big difference. And it's quite clear that the Sixers got the better end of that trade with Harden for him.
Without a doubt. And I don't expect Simmons to play. I don't see the Nets getting out of the first round. I think they're done. But they certainly have the talent, if everybody gets on the court, to advance one round. That's about it.
Right, Joe. Yeah, we just got to end the dramatics.
Yeah, I can't wait for that to end.
Me neither.
So, your picks this week went a perfect 3-0 with 1 to go tonight. Excellent job. What are your picks for this upcoming week?
Thanks, Joe. Yeah. And a message for all the listeners who may have listened to the last podcast. We had to take a couple of games off this week because players were coming in that were on injury, and then players were going out because of injury, and that really skewed the lines in a couple of games. So I took them off,
Yes.
including tonight's game. I took off. I'm sorry. No, I have tonight's game on, but I switched sides because of the players playing.
Right. So always check the website for the up to the minute wagers or predictions.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely right. But Joe, I have 6 games this week. And what's interesting about this selection of games is I'm highlighting the Chicago Bulls at home for 3 games against major East Coast foes that are coming in. And I'm guessing Chicago's going to be the home dog in each of these cases, other than the last game, which we'll talk about. But in each of these games, of the 6 games I'm picking, 5, you're going to have road faves pretty much figured out in this. So this ought to be a pretty interesting second to last week of basketball for the association. So let's get to it. Thursday, March 31st, tomorrow, Milwaukee is going into Brooklyn, and Milwaukee's 43-26, 19-14 on the road, and 7-3 in their last 10 against the spread. But they are playing Brooklyn 36-33. Joe, this has to be, I keep looking this up to make sure it's not a typo. This has to be probably the worst record that you can find in association history. Brooklyn is 7-24-1 home against the spread this year. Yeah, and it doesn't matter if Kyrie's playing or not playing, Simmons is playing, Harden's playing, KD. That's got to be the worst home against the spread record I have ever heard of in league history. So Milwaukee's 2-1 in their meetings this year, and this will be the last meeting. Milwaukee will probably be giving 2. I'm taking Milwaukee in their big 3 on this until Brooklyn can prove anything at home or away. I'm taking Milwaukee. On Friday, April Fool's Day, this is no fool of a game. This is going to be your game of the week. You got Phoenix, the number 1 Phoenix Suns in the association, 55-14. They are an astounding 26-6 on the road, but they are 4-6 in their last 10 road against the spread. They go into Big Rich's house of pain, the Memphis Grizzlies, 48-22, 24-10 at home. And they are the opposite, Joe. Memphis is 7-3 in their last 10 against the spread. The 2 teams actually have battled to a 1-1 tie this year, with each one winning in their home court. So I'm guessing Phoenix, now that they have CP3 back, this is going to be trending towards Phoenix being the road fave. They're going to be giving about 2.5. I am actually going to take Memphis at home as the home dog and get as many points as I can on that and keep Big Rich smiling over there at the ticket collection window. So Saturday, April 2nd, Joe, this is the start of that back-to-back-to-back that I was kind of telling you about with the Bulls. It's the start of 3 really tough East Coast rivalry games. And Chicago really hasn't done well against any of their bigger foes this year. So it was kind of surprising to see them in a number 1 East slot for a while, because if you look at these records, I'm not sure how they ever were when you had these guys just kind of pounding on them. But the first game is Miami, 46-24, 21-15 on the road, and 22-13-1 total road against the spread this season. They go into the Chicago Bulls 41-27, 25-10 at home, very respectable, and it has to make you question, not betting the Bulls at home. But the Bulls are 3-7 in their last 10 home against the spread. They are, winning and not even winning now, but they're not even covering the spread at home either. Miami, like I was mentioning, Joe, 3-0 against them. They've just trounced. Miami has just trounced Chicago this year. I'm guessing Miami will be giving a couple points on the road. I'm gonna catch the falling knife here, Joe. I'm gonna say Chicago with as many points, they're gonna at least keep it close and cover the spread. They may not win the game, and Miami may sweep them, but I think Chicago will keep the line close and play with a lot of pride on that one. The very next day, you got I can't, and this is another just kind of game that we don't really talk about, the Cleveland Cavaliers, but they've been actually having a pretty decent season. And so I'm giving you the Philadelphia 76ers are going in there 41-26, 22-11 on the road, 7-3 last 10 against the spread, and Harden has a lot to do with that. They go into Cleveland. Cleveland is 38-29. They actually have a really decent record, Joe, at home, 21-11. And they actually have an even, more astounding 19-12-1 home against the spread. So Cleveland is no slouch at home. I still think Philadelphia has too much going on right now, and they're getting ready. As you and I had been talking, Embiid has been playing at MVP form. And I'm guessing Philly will give 4.5 on this. Philly is also 3-0 against Cleveland, so they're looking to sweep them. I think Philly gets the job done and does sweep them. I'm going to take Philly on the money line on that game, Joe. On Tuesday, April 5th, you got Milwaukee goes into Chicago. This is the second of the big monsters that go in there. I already talked about how good Milwaukee is with the first game against Brooklyn. And I've also talked about Chicago, but Milwaukee is really finding their stride. They're a very good road team. They're 3-0 against Chicago this year. I also believe that if Chicago plays a tough game against Miami the day before, I'm thinking that, again, they probably will keep it close as long as they can, but I think Milwaukee just is too strong for them. I'm going to take Milwaukee on the money line on that one, Joe. And then finally, rounding out the week and rounding out the homestand, Chicago is at home against Boston, yet another foe. And Boston, as we talked about during Take or Fake, is they're going to be missing their center Williams, who's been just a incredible Clydesdale for them in the last several weeks. But Boston comes in still number 1 in the Eastern power rankings right now, Joe. 41-28. However, they're a mediocre 17-16 on the road. You kind of would like to see a team that has championship aspirations to be a little stronger on the road than 500, but they are 7-3 in their last 10 overall against the spread. And they have vaulted to the number 1 spot in the East, not just in power rankings, at least, not just in the Atlantic Division. They actually have split with Chicago this year. So it's one of the few kind of big teams or rivalries that Chicago has actually played even at this point. And I say Chicago gets the job done at home. I think they're going to lay 3, but I think Chicago will probably really exploit the Williams absence and probably end the homestand on a good note.
Well, hopefully you continue your hot streak here as we go into the second to last week of the season. Good work, Mark, and thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Covering the women's March Madness action is our correspondent, Ronnie McKinnon. How's it going today, Ronnie?
Joe, I'm doing really great. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic too. Excited about this weekend. Of course, the women also have reached their Final Four. What happened last week in the ladies NC2A tournament?
Well, first of all, great job, Big Rich. Good info. That was a good segment there. Well, he always does a good segment. But anyway, the Final Four, we have South Carolina playing Louisville and Stanford playing UConn. We go back to the Sweet 16 where South Carolina beat North Carolina, Stanford beat Maryland, Texas beat Ohio State. That was a good game. It was only a 3-point win. And then the Creighton Blue Jays from Omaha, Nebraska actually beat number 3 seed Iowa State by 8 points in that game. Then we went to the Elite Eight, and we had South Carolina beating Creighton 80-50. So it was, 30-point win. Not much competition there. Stanford beat Texas by 9. Connecticut beat North Carolina State. That was a great game. I was rooting for North Carolina State, but 91-87, 2 overtimes. That was a great game to watch. And Louisville beat Michigan by 12. So, now we have Friday at 4:00 will be South Carolina and Louisville, and then at 6:30 Pacific time it'll be Stanford and UConn. I personally am going for the South Carolina Gamecocks. They Stanford obviously has been great all year. They were actually 32-3 this year, Stanford, and South Carolina was 33-2. Stanford won their last 24 games this year, and then 4 more in the March Madness. UConn, they won 14 straight and their games also in the March Madness. South Carolina, Louisville actually is 29-4 this year. And I think I like Louisville, but I think South Carolina, that's who I'm going for. And I am going to pick Stanford over UConn. And so that's where we're at there.
Yeah, I was watching some of these games, and I was rooting for Creighton, the number 10 seed against South Carolina. It was basically the female version of St. Peter's. They were the Cinderella story, Creighton, and they did basically what St. Peter's did at the Elite Eight and get beat up pretty bad. That was sad. But the game of the tournament for sure, the Connecticut-North Carolina State game, as you said, double overtime, featured 9 ties and 13 lead changes. The 3-pointer by the NC State player to tie it in overtime. That was truly a great game. Have you watched it?
Totally, yeah. I did forget to mention also Saturday, part of the Sweet 16, getting North Carolina State there to play Connecticut. They beat Notre Dame, who I was rooting for, those Fighting Irish. That was a good game too. It was only by 3 points. Connecticut beat Indiana by 17, and then Michigan beat South Dakota, the Blue Jays.
Yeah, that was the Cinderella story of South Dakota.
They were number 10 in the tournament, and it was a good game though. It was 3 points, and then Louisville had beat Tennessee by 12, and so those 4 teams then went or will be in the finals, which we already talked about, or the final the Final 4 games. So
Yes.
before
Yes. Final 4 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. 3 teams return. Louisville replaces Arizona. Otherwise, we have the same 4 teams in there. Those are the number 1, 2, 4, and 5 teams ranked in the Associated Press poll. And
that's correct.
there they are, all in the Final 4.
That's correct. Yeah, South Carolina, Stanford were 1 and 2 all year. Louisville number 4, like you said, and UConn number 5. Also in the tournament, 3 of those teams were number 1, and UConn was number 2. So, and we also, shout out to head coach Gino Ariema. Yeah, I always mix that name. He's been there since 1985. Again, I'm rooting for Stanford in that game, but and I didn't realize all that time too that his real name is Luigi, and he's always been goes by Gino. So it's something I didn't know.
I didn't know that either. I like the call on Gino though. I like that better than Luigi.
Well, yeah, cool.
I'm
They're
just
both
saying.
they're both Italian, right?
Yeah, fair enough.
So,
Just personal preference.
right.
So this first game is South Carolina -7.5. The over and under is 121.5 against Louisville. Do you have a prediction on the point spread for that game or the over under?
Well,
I know you
I
like
think,
South Carolina.
yeah,
Are they
I
going to win
think
by 8 is the question.
I don't think so. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than that. So,
Any
I want
thoughts on?
South Carolina. They very
Mhm.
well could beat them by. I'm saying they won't win by. I think it'll be closer.
Okay. Any
Louisville's been
thoughts
playing good.
on that over under of 121.5?
Yeah, I think that'll probably go over.
Okay. The second game is the one everyone wants to see that are watching women's is Stanford -1. The over and under is 128 against Connecticut. You already said that you like Stanford to win that game, and the spread's only 1. Do you have a thoughts on the 128 total?
I actually think that one will go over also.
All right. Well, before I get to my prediction, let's admire Connecticut coach Gino Ariema, who we started to talk about. Luigi. UConn has gone to 14 straight Final Fours, 22 total, and won 11 championships. That's 1 more than legendary men's coach John Wooden, who won 10. This year,
Right, UCLA, right?
of course, yes. Won those 10 out of 12 years, in fact. This year, the Huskies overcame the loss of Paige Beckers for 19 games due to a knee injury. Beckers last year became the first freshman named National Player of the Year. When she came back, obviously, they were a much different team, much better team, and as a number 2 seed, managed to win. But having said all that, I'm taking defending champion Stanford also, like you are, -1 versus the Huskies. UConn lost one of its key reserves to a wrist injury last game, and the Huskies haven't played a game outside of Connecticut since February 18th. That's pretty amazing how they got to play in Stores and Uncasville and Bridgeport. And
Right.
NC State had to play in Bridgeport. It was like the Luigi Invitational.
Right. Yeah, a little bit of advantage there, huh?
Yeah, it didn't make any sense that North Carolina State as a 1 seed would have to go to Connecticut in that game. So that was very favorable.
Yeah,
So,
I agree, Joe.
yes.
I agree.
And you have a prediction for the national champion. You said South Carolina, I believe, to win it.
I did. Yep,
Okay.
that's who I'm going for.
Okay. I've still got Stanford to repeat as champions. We're going to go against each other on that one.
Well, yeah, and again, they've been 1-2 all year, and they thought Sanford would move ahead of them at that one point during the year. In the But they stayed 1-2 like that, and ended up 1-2 like that. So almost identical records too. So
Well, that would be an incredible game, of course.
oh,
If we
totally,
see it,
yeah.
yes.
And
And that would be
it's not a
Sunday.
total given. It's not a total given. I
No.
think Louisville and especially UConn totally have a shot. But I'm hoping for South Carolina Stanford. That'd be a good game.
Yeah, that's what I want. And that'll be Sunday. So Ronnie, you're the
That
biggest.
that will be Sunday, correct?
Yes.
They'll play Friday and Sunday, and the men play Saturday and Monday for their final.
Right. Ronnie, you're the biggest baseball fan I know. What are the stories lately in Major League Baseball?
Well, Joe, I'll go over a few things. Next week, I have a whole lot of information to talk about right before the season starts, and also making some predictions. Um, I'll talk about the top rotations, bullpens, the lineups, and all that. But for today, we're going to just go over a few things. I don't think I mentioned it before. Previously, this happened a while ago, but Major League Baseball created a $1 million fund to support the workers that were affected by missing some of the spring games. And, those are part time workers, seasonal workers, concessionaries, ground crews, security, clubhouse, general ballpark, and game operations. So I think that was a really great thing that MLB did to help some of those people that might have had some problems.
Yes, the ones who
For
didn't get to
missing.
work the exhibition games.
Correct, exactly. So I think that's a good thing. I meant to bring that up last week, but I wanted to throw that in there. Also, of course, I think I talked about this before too. I won't go into detail, but there's some updated enforcement guidelines for sticky stuff, for illegal substances that the pitchers or even players in the field might use. So they will be, the umpires will be checking. They try to do it after the inning so they don't delay the game anymore. But I think it's a good idea to do that. And They will be enforcing it, and they did it last year too a little bit. But there's some new guidelines, nothing majorly different. But also, I wanted to mention, I think I mentioned this before too, about the new pitch calling device that they've been trying out in the minor leagues, and actually a little bit in the major leagues also. They're testing it out. Manager Mike Matheny, who's been around quite some time, is a real fan of it. He's the manager of the Kansas City Royals. So there is some details. I think I went over some of that before too. But I think it's a good idea, and I kind of like it. It can speed up the game also, without doing anything too crazy. I'm an old traditional baseball fan, so I don't. Um, I know I've talked to a friend of mine who is surprised I like the DH. Well, I've been used to it. The DH has been in the American League for quite some time. I think it's a good idea to do it in the National League. I'm okay with that. Um, there is going to be some new rules for this year. They are going back to the runner on second base in extra innings, which I hate, but they're going to do that again, at least for a while. Double hitters will be 9 innings. Last year they were 7, so they will be 9, which is good. The rosters will expand for each team from 26 to 28 players. They're saying only till May 1st. And then there's a new rule called the Otani rule, because Otani is a great hitter and pitcher. Now, if a pitcher comes out of a game, he will still be able to stay in the game as a designated hitter, and I think that's fine also. So those are just some of the new rules for coming up this season. And I did want to mention one of my favorites, and I think most people, Albert Pujols, did re-sign with St. Louis Cardinals, where he spent 10 years of his career before he spent 10 with the Angels, and then spent part of the year last year with the Dodgers. Personally, I would have kept him. He's a great guy to have in the clubhouse, real knowledgeable. Everybody likes him. He can still hit. So he's going to be DHing for the Cardinals on a 1-year, $2.5 million salary. And he's also only 21 home runs away from 700. He's hit 679. We've only had 3 guys over 700: Barry Bonds, Henry Aaron, and of course Babe Ruth. Yeah, a couple more things,
A little
Joe.
Questionable on Barry Bonds.
Yeah, well, I
how
didn't
he
want to
got
get into
there.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of his ever. I mean,
Yeah,
um,
I wouldn't
great.
count him personally.
Exactly. Henry Aaron should be, but I watched Barry Bonds when he was first coming into the league, and you could tell the difference in his body and his head and all that. But great ball player. I mean, he was a great outfielder, a great hitter for power and for average. And it's just sad that he's did that. And he did it purposely to try to be the home run leader. And obviously, he did steroids. And at the end of his career, because there was no DH and he was playing, for the Giants, I mean, he wasn't even fielding. He wouldn't go for ball. He didn't want to get hurt and misses at bats. And so I hated that. But
well, he did it to compete with Mark McGuire at the time, and
well,
was obviously doing it, the guy he called Whitey at the time. But,
right, it's true. Well, I remember back in '98 when it was Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire, the home run, and they were both hitting like 60 several years in a row, and then McGuire ended up with 70, I believe, at the time was the most, until Bonds beat that per year for home runs. So.
Well, any other stories you want to get to?
Yeah, real quick, Joe. I wanted to shout out to some college baseball. Number 16, Texas Tech, 2 days in a row playing number 2, Texas. And one of the ball players there, Kurt Wilson, ended up 2 days in a row hitting 2 walk-offs to beat number 2, Texas. So that was pretty exciting. And also wanted to bring up Tyler Zombro, pitcher for Tampa Bay. He had been hit with a 104 mile per hour fastball that off the bat and came back and hit him in the head. He is back pitching actually, and he wears a special protection on his head and also over his temple. But he's back out there throwing, and I think that's awesome. And lots of luck to him.
Yeah, and anyone following college baseball, there are odds out for the national championship already. If you want to make a prediction, I believe Mississippi's number 1. I don't know if they're, we're still a ways away from the College World Series. We haven't even got to regionals yet.
That's right, Joe. And again, I'll be next week, and as the season goes on, making some predictions and picks for Major League Baseball, and I'll probably dive a little bit into college also.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ronnie, for the information.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Our final guest today is Gator Gates. How are things going today, Gator?
Oh, I'm doing all right, Joe. Thanks for asking.
What's the news in the National Hockey League?
Well, last night was a big night, Joe. They were calling it the Titan Day, Titan Tuesday. 8 of the top teams were playing each other. Now, Boston was at a -150, and they lost to Toronto 6-4. The Rangers beat Pittsburgh 3-2. Tampa Bay, they won over Carolina 4-3. And the Avalanche are the first team to get 100 points, and they took down the Flames in Calgary 2-1. So it was great action last night, Joe.
Yeah, last I checked, the Bruins were down 5-1. So I guess they managed to make a decent little comeback in that game, but fell short apparently.
Yeah, they didn't have such a bad first. Well, there was 1-1 in the first, and then they started scoring in the second. But yeah, you're right, Joe.
Yeah, disappointing for my Bruins. I do believe there was some news up in Montreal also.
Oh yeah, Joe. The Montreal Canadiens general manager Kent Hughes He said Monday that he would like to remove the interim tag off of Martin St. Louis and keep him in Montreal. The Canadians are the first team to be eliminated from the playoffs, and they are 18-37-11. But since Martin, their record is 10-8-4. So, Joe, I agree with Mr. Hughes. He said, and I quote, I said at the beginning, I'm not one to bet against Marty St. Louis, and those that have generally lost, and he's a pretty special guy. He's proven to be a very special coach, unquote. So, Joe, being a Bruins fan, I'm kind of wondering, what do you think about this?
Well, good question. I'm kind of torn on that one. Martin St. Louis, I always root for the little guy, and St. Louis was 5'8". He was undrafted because of his size. They managed to play 16 seasons in the NHL. He started with Calgary, bulk of his career in Tampa Bay, finished with the New York Rangers, managed to score over 1,000 points and won a Stanley Cup. For a small guy who's undrafted, remarkable career. You could never underestimate him. But being a Bruins fan, I don't like it because he's coaching Montreal. And I don't like the Canadians. So it's too bad he ended up on the Canadians.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Joe. I mean, I agree everything that you said about Martin, but yeah, I don't really like that he's up there as well. But I guess we're just gonna have to live with that.
Well, he is a French Canadian, and the Canadians always have to have a French-speaking coach. And when they haven't had those coaches, it usually hasn't worked out well, and they get fired pretty quickly.
Yeah, you're correct, Joe. I agree.
So, Gator, your picks went 7-3 last week, meaning your predictions have gone 101-37 over the last 17 weeks. Remarkable. What are your picks for the upcoming week?
Okay, Joe. This does start. The end of the regular season ends April 29th, so we only have less than a month to go. But Thursday, I have 3 games. I got Boston over New Jersey, Florida over Chicago, Colorado over San Jose. Friday, I have 1 game. It's Tampa Bay over Chicago. Sunday, I have 3. I got Florida over Buffalo, the Rangers over Philly, and Edmonton over Anaheim. Now, Joe, Anaheim is 0-10 right now in their last 10 games. Monday, I got St. Louis over Arizona. And Tuesday, I have 2 games, Carolina over Buffalo and Edmonton over San Jose.
Well, hopefully you keep up your hot streak. I don't see why you won't. Those seem like pretty good picks. On a side note, Thursday was the 86th anniversary of the longest game in NHL history, as the Detroit Red Wings in 1936 defeated the Montreal Maroons 1-0 in the semifinals of the Stanley Cup playoffs. The game went to 6 overtimes and lasted 176 minutes and 30 seconds, which in real time I figure to be over 8 hours long. Gator, would you have liked to watch that game?
Well, it wasn't nothing game for 8 hours. I'm not sure, Joe, but I would have liked to have seen how those games were played back then. The rules were so different then than they are now, and I just would like to see how it was played and how it went.
Yeah, I know those are the days before curved sticks. I kind of thought, it was impossible to lift the pucks, but yet there were some high-scoring games back then too.
Oh yeah, they were in their 20s, and yeah, it wasn't nothing to see a 20-20 game, that's for sure. So to see a 1-0 game go that long, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I wouldn't have liked to seen that game personally. It's just way too long, and I love hockey, but 8 hours is just a bit much.
Yeah, a little bit.
Just a little bit. So shifting over to NASCAR, how did last week's race in Austin, Texas end up?
Okay. Well, Ross Chastain, he won at the Circuit of Americas in Austin, Texas Sunday. Now, before qualifying, Ross was 40-1. Before the race, he went up at 15-1. So another double-digit win, Joe. But the race was over 3 hours and 20 minutes long and had 9 yellow flags. Now, in overtime, Tyler Reddick was in first. Chastain and A.G. Allmendinger were second and third, and Alex Bowman was sitting fourth. Now, we did have 4 lead changes, 2 by Ross, and Allmendinger and Alex Bowman both got by the leader once. Now, the race was decided when Chastain dive bombed Allmendinger on the inside. Now, that sent AJ spinning and finished 33rd. Alex survived that spin from Allmendinger and finished second. Now, that did put Chevy first and second. Toyota got third with Christopher Bell, and the Fords ended up in sixth with pole sitter Ryan Blaney.
Yeah, that was our first road course. I believe we're having 6 road races this year. And that was our,
That's correct.
yes, and it's also our 6th different winner already this year. The next
Yeah, and
gen car strikes again.
Yeah, I think that trend's going to keep going too, Joe. We're just
Yeah.
going to have different drivers all year this year.
Well, that's going to be interesting because only 16 make the playoff. And the way they set up the playoff is if you win a race, you automatically qualify for the playoff. Well, at this rate, with 36 races, there's going to be more than 16 winners.
Yeah, I would say so. That's my guess, Joe.
Yeah.
It might have 1 or 2 drivers that win too, but I think most of it that win and you're in is not going to be happening this year. I don't think.
Well, that's going to be, they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to change something because if there are 17 or 18 winners, I don't see how they can exclude a race winner from the playoff. So I'm going to suggest that they just expand the playoff, just make a rules change right at the end of the year, but don't change anything else. Still have 12 make the next round and 8 the next round and 4 in the final race. Winning,
Right, Joe. And that way, if you win, you're still in. You just
yeah.
have to win a race and you're in the playoffs. And I like that idea, Joe. That's kind of what the whole thing was based on anyway.
Well, that was the whole concept from the beginning. Yes, like you said, if there's 20 winners this year, okay, 8 fight for the top 12 spots in the next round.
Yeah, I
It
actually
just-
like that a lot, Joe.
Yeah, it just makes more sense. So next week is Richmond, and what
Yeah.
do you see happening there?
Well, like I said, like you said, Joe, the next race is Sunday at 12 o'clock on Fox. They will be on that short track at Richmond Raceway in Virginia. Now, Alex Bowman is the race winner last year, but Martin Truex won the playoff race that was done in September. Now, this race is going to be sponsored by Toyota, and I would think that Denny Hamlin and Truex will have a great day. What thing about that, Joe, is that the books have them at 8.5 on both those drivers. So, of course, I'm going to take Truex.
Well, for once, we're going to agree on one of these races. Gator, Truex has won 3 out of the last 5 races actually at Richmond. So he has a good history there.
Yes, he's a good short track guy. That's for sure.
Right. And what happened in Formula One last week?
Okay, Joe. Well, Max Verstappen won the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix at a favorite 3-2. Now, the race between Verstappen and Charles Leclerc was epic. They had several back and forth wheel-to-wheel moves, but with 4 laps left, Max made the move that put Red Bull first on the podium. Now, Ferrari got second and third, but unfortunately, Joe, that was not the story. 20 minutes into the opening practice Friday, a Yemen missile hit an oil depot that was about 6 miles east of the track. In the early hours on Saturday morning, word spread that the 20 drivers were going to boycott the event. Now, after 3 hours with Formula One bosses and Saudi government officials assuring the drivers of their safety, they decided to go back to work. Now, moving forward, this race might not be on the calendar next year.
Yeah, I wouldn't think it would be if there's going to be missiles going off 6 miles away from the track, or maybe the next time might be even a little closer.
Yeah, exactly. But heading into Australia, which is next week, and that's going to be April 8th through the 10th, Charles Leclerc has 45 points. His teammate, Carlos Sainz, has 33. Max Verstappen is sitting in third place with 25. Now, that does put Ferrari in first with 78 points. Mercedes is second with 38 points. And Red Bull is 1 point behind them with 37 and sitting in third.
So no race this week. but Australia in 2 weeks.
Yes, correct, Joe.
So, Gator, the United States soccer team's quest to reach the World Cup entered the final week of qualifying. How is the U.S. doing?
Well, Thursday, U.S. played Mexico in Azteca Stadium, and the game was very unpreventable, with U.S. getting their third straight tie in that stadium, 0-0. Now, Mexico had 63% of the possession and had 11 shots, but only 2 of those shots got to the U.S. goaltender, Zach Steffen. U.S. had 9 shots and 4 were on goal. Now, because of the brawl that was in Querétaro on March 5th, they only had 30,000 fans. The stadium that is 7,200 feet in elevation does hold 87,000. Joe, because of that incident, 3 police officers and 1 civil protection guard were arrested for their failure to act on the violence.
Right. And that was a perfect tie for us, us guys that were sitting at the book. We bet the draw. It was a perfectly grisly 0-0 final at 3-1 odds for the draw. It was very nice.
That is nice. Now, the men did also play Panama in Orlando Sunday, and Christian Pulisic, he scored his first hat trick for the national team, and USA did win 5-1. Now, tonight, US will be playing Costa Rica, and as long as they don't lose by 6 goals, the US will be in the going to the World Cup in Qatar. Now, in the last 5 meetings between those 2 teams, the most that Costa Rica has ever scored was 2. And that was September 1st, 2017. And US did lose 2-0.
Well, I'm pretty safe bet. Costa Rica is not going to score 6 goals on the United States. Congratulations to the United States for qualifying for the World Cup. They did not qualify 4 years ago. It was disappointing after 7 consecutive times of qualifying, but now we're right back in it.
Where we should be.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And the World Cup draw is Friday, and we'll find out who we're going to be up against.
Right. And yeah, another thing that was crazy, Joe, was that there was another brawl in Africa when Nigeria lost to Ghana. But in that brawl, the cops were actually beating the fans up with a baton, and they were spraying gas to dismiss the crowd. So at least they did something, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't hear about that, but maybe there's some video on that on YouTube or something.
Oh, there is. It's pretty wild. You gotta see that.
I've got to see that. Well, great job, Gator, and thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Joe.
Sponsored by MXE Media, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time for the moments we've all been waiting for. The stories that make us furious about bets that appeared surely to be winners, but in the end, something went horribly wrong and they ended up being losers. It's the segment we affectionately call You Got Hosed.
You got hosed.
So, Gator, do you have a You Got Hosed story for this week?
Yeah, Joe, my host story is Ashley Barty. She announced that she was retiring from tennis. Now, the 25-year-old has been ranked number 1 for 114 weeks and just won the Australian Open 2 months ago. Now, she also has won the 2019 French Open and the 2021 Wimbledon. Now, she said on Instagram that she doesn't have the physical drive, the emotional want, and everything it takes to challenge yourself at the very top level. The news was a shock throughout the whole sports world, but not a surprise to the people that were close to her. So I would have to say, Joe, this week, I think the whole tennis world got hosed.
Yeah, it's very strange. A number 1 leaving the game on top. John McEnroe did it when Bjorn Borg retired. And, he just felt like he didn't have any competition at that point, and he just kind of got bored with the whole concept and did come back eventually and was never near the same type of player. As far as Barty is concerned, her dream was to win the Wimbledon, and she did win Wimbledon and then managed to win the Australian Open this year. So all she needed was a US Open for the career Grand Slam, yet she feels she's accomplished her dreams already.
Yeah, I would say so, Joe. It gets to be work after a while, so I don't blame her at all.
Well, tennis, you got to be in shape to play tennis. That is a lot of hard work.
And your mind too.
Absolutely. And if you have a bad day, you lose. There are no teammates to keep you winning. That's for
Right,
sure.
to back you up, sure.
Exactly.
Do you have a You Got Host story for us, Joe?
Well, I alluded to my You Got Host story earlier in the show. I had UCLA and North Carolina going over 141.5 points on an 8-team parlay Friday. The Bruins and Tar Heels combined for a dismal 59 points in the first half, and UCLA goes cold late in the second half as they tally a total of 139 points, 1 3-pointer shy of the total. I end up going 7 out of 8 on the 8-team parlay. Close, but no cigar. I got those.
That was painful, Joe, especially being that close.
But yeah, it was painful watching that game for sure.
Painful listening to it.
You got host.
So that's all for this week's show. I'd like to thank my associates, Big Richard Martin, Rockin' Ronnie McKinnon, Marc the Shark Sabella, and Gator Gates, our producer, our engineer, our editor, our junior IT tech, Caden Martin, and everyone for listening. We'd like you to visit our Covering the Field website to check out our many articles and our picks of the day and week. We'd like to remind you listeners to email us at coveringthefield@gmail.com. Give us your feedback, your You Got Hose moments, and any other comments you'd like to give us, and find us on Twitter at Covering Field. Hopefully you all enjoyed the show, and hopefully you join us and hear us again next week on another episode of Covering the Field.
You've been listening to Covering the Field, a CM World Services and the Sage production.